out, stop out. Beautiful outdoor patio. Many people taking advantage of that here this afternoon. Shuttles to and from the Brewers games as well, home games. Make sure to take advantage of that. And don't forget, $5 Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Teas until game time going out here at Left's Lucky Town. 100 calories. Can't beat it. Come out here, have a Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea at Left's Lucky Town. And $50 off apps and bottles of wine as well after 4 o'clock this evening here at Left's Lucky Town. Sparky here. Over there, he is joining us on our fan guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. He is Tim Dillard. How are we doing, Tim?
Good, Sparky. How are you?
Doing good out here at Left's Lucky Town in Tosa, enjoying the nice Wisconsin weather that we have. So I'm going to bring up to you the same thing I've brought up to Jerry Augustine yesterday because I'm livid by what I heard 2 days ago, and I can't let it go. I can't move on. It's kind of ruining my life. So Andrew Wagner of Forbes Sports, Brewers writer, joined, as he does every Tuesday here on this show, and he's at American Family Field right now getting ready for Brewers and Angels. And he suggested the possibility of Jacob Misiorowski maybe not being on the divisional round playoff roster because they haven't moved him to the bullpen to this point. It doesn't appear like he'll be a starter in this round, and that maybe they would save him to the NLCS and then give him that opportunity. I was livid for numerous reasons, but before I move on, I want to get your thoughts on, do you see a possibility of that happening?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I know Wags. He doesn't know either. He's just guessing, unless he has inside information. There's no way to know. I bet they also had plans in place, and then Jose Quintana goes on the IL.
Right.
You can have plans, and you can say, hey, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. But baseball doesn't care if it's a week away or 1 day away. It doesn't matter. I personally don't know why you would wait around, because you're already, if they got to buy past the wild card, which it looks more and more like that,
Yep.
then it's going to be another 4 or 5 days. Then you tack on another series, and then you're starting to look at a lot of time in between facing major league hitters. So, I don't know the strategy involved in that, but I mean, I think it's Andrew Wagner just guessing, which we're all doing.
I hope that's what it is. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I'm going with that. Yes, thank you. That's positive. Yeah. I'll roll with that. That maybe that's just all it is. Hopefully he's guessing wrong and it doesn't work out for numerous reasons. But the other part about this is, do you like the way these playoff series are set up in Major League Baseball? We're going from a three game series to a 5-game series to a 7-game series, because from what you're talking about too, as far as what the rosters look like, there are going to be guys that probably won't be on one roster, but will be on another roster. And if it were to be a Misiorowski or a Quintana or whoever that may not be on one roster, but then maybe asked to start in the NLCS after not having faced, live MLB hitters for 2 weeks, that's probably going to be kind of a big ask at this point.
It is. I mean, and there's still, I know 12 days. Is that right? 12 games left, something like that, 11 games. I know that seems like it's coming down to the wire, but these are all decisions that don't have to be made for a while, for 11 days or whatever. And so you can make all the decisions you want, but to me, they're going to put together the best roster for that series. And honestly, I think the team's built for a 5-game series. It's built for a 7-game series. There's a lot of teams out there that are only built for maybe 3 or maybe not at all. So I think there's a lot of stuff that's still up in the air, but the Brewers have no reason for anyone to doubt them. I mean, they've been doubted all year and have excelled. So don't see that being an issue when they're trying to put together a winning playoff roster.
I have another question that came up. We had Jerry Augustine on, and I didn't think about asking him the question. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this, because you and I have been talking for like the last 3 or 4 years doing these weekly interviews. When we talk about a pitcher that maybe struggles to get through 6 innings, high pitch count. I'm using Freddie Peralta as an example, but not specifically, but just in general, right? How much of that is game planning? How much of that is calling of the game from the catcher and the pitcher being on the same page? Meaning, catcher's calling one thing, pitcher's like, nope, I'm not throwing it there. I'd rather nibble on the outside. I'd work this a little bit longer, that type of deal. In having that cohesion that goes along with it to make it work. Because we always want to say, oh, it's Freddie, he can't figure this out and so forth, and we all get mad at Freddie. But I never asked the other aspect of how much the rest of this plays into it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's game calling or anything other than, if you're using Freddie and some of his starts, he goes 5 innings, throws 100 pitches or whatever. I think it's just because he doesn't want to give up anything. Like he just slows the game down, which is hard to do nowadays because of all the clock and everything in place. So he slows things down by just nibbling, and making guys get out on pitches they wouldn't usually swing at, or they just walk and then it's like, all right, reset button, let's face the next guy, which is fine. I've had tons of teammates that would pitch that way. They didn't care if it took 40 pitches, they want a zero. And there's other people that are like, well, I want to throw 10 pitches. I'm okay giving up a home run and then I'll get the other 3 outs. And, everyone's built a little bit different. But we've seen the fact that he can go 6 innings or 7 innings, and he can do that on a 100-pitch count. But as things wind down, honestly, his last start the other day looked like all he wanted to do was strike out 10 batters. That's what it looked like the entire game.
Yeah.
It's almost like he wrote it down and said, I'm going to strike out 10 batters today, went out there and made that happen, which is not an easy thing to do. But his stuff's elite. But with that eliteness, sometimes you miss. And when you miss and don't get swings at it, then they're balls. So to your point, there's guys out there that can strike out the world in 5 innings, and there's other guys that can give up a few runs over 8 innings and on the same amount of pitches. It's kind of just whatever the game's asking for that day. Sometimes you have zero control over it, and it could be the umpire or even the environment.
Let me ask you about Eric Fetty, a guy that comes over here, was just hanging out there after being released, and looks like a really good pitcher since they've brought him over. And I think it was Dominic Cotroneo maybe brought up that it seems like he's just throwing the sweeper more, and that's been kind of the difference with him being in Milwaukee versus other places. What have you taken away from Washington pitch?
Yeah, I mean, well, he was a starter pretty much everywhere he went. So all of a sudden you got the Brewers that are like, hey, we're going to throw you in the bullpen. So now he goes from starting most of his career. Now he's in the bullpen, and it's like, we don't need you to have 8 pitches in your arsenal. Pick 2 or the best, which right now he's really showcasing his cutter and his sweeper. It's like, run with those pitches, get really good at those 2 pitches, because that's what the situation calls for now. You don't need 8 pitches coming out of the bullpen to throw 2 innings, in relief. So to me, that's what it is. Find your best stuff and run with it. I even had a coach, Eddie Perez, told me a long time ago. Eddie Perez, that coached or
former catcher.
Caught for the Braves, got all the big ones, Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz.
He was Maddox's personal catcher, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was my manager in Venezuela, and I was doing really well and had a really good stretch for a couple weeks or a month. And then one day I show up at a place, I think we were in Magallanes, and I threw a fastball, beautiful fastball, down and away to a righty. And it was like off the plate, and it came right back down and away. And this dude just absolutely missiled it to right field, goes opposite field. And anyway, the next day we were talking, all the coaches would smoke cigars in the dugout.
Nice.
And he said, what was your first thought when that guy ambushed you and hit the first pitch fastball down and away? And I said, my first thought was, I didn't get a chance to throw him my curveball. And he goes, that's your best pitch. If that's your best pitch, you should not be waiting around on throwing that pitch. So fast forward now, I mean, you're seeing a guy in Fetty in particular. It's like you don't want to get beat on something that's not your best pitch, especially when you're a reliever. Go to your best pitch, throw it right away, and then go from there. But because the last thing you want to do is give up a first pitch hit on something that's not your best pitch, and then all you can think of is, why did I throw my best pitch? That's the worst. So we're seeing him throw his best pitches when he needs to. He's been good.
Tim Dillard joins us, of course, FanDuel Sports Network, Wisconsin Brewers analyst, pre- and post-host, game analyst as well when Rock is off too, and ultimately one of the funniest guys in all of sports. Tim Dillard, I have this question for you. Is that what makes Chris Hook so good compared to other pitching coaches? Because I feel like every time we talk about, hey, why is this guy all of a sudden doing good and they weren't very good elsewhere, and then why is this guy good? I feel like it's always the same answer. Well, Chris Hook's telling him to throw his best pitch more than maybe other pitching coaches do, I guess, across Major League Baseball. Is it really just that simple? He just has them throwing their best pitches more often than other guys?
I mean, maybe, but also, too, every situation is going to be different. Some guys are starters coming over and they're asked to be in the bullpen. Other guys are, big deals on where they come from. And now suddenly they're humbled a little bit. They find themselves with the Brewers, and so they're more I don't know, more in the right mindset to listen to some sort of instruction. But I guarantee there's some sort of checklist. They're going to go through mechanics. They're going to go through pitches. They're going to go through what works against lefties, righties. There's like no stone that's unturned when it comes to trying to put together a guy's craft. And sometimes the players can't see it. You know, they fall in love with a certain pitch. They're like, this is my pitch. And it's like, well, you're not, if you, every time you throw it in this count against this batter, it doesn't go well. So we need to do different things. So to me, a lot of times it's just putting out there, this is what you do well, this is what you don't do well. And a lot of times I would say there's organizations that have big time pitchers. Maybe they're struggling, but they don't want to help them or maybe they're trying to, and that pitcher doesn't want to be helped. I think when you come to the Brewers, especially now as a pitcher, I think you know that, hey, maybe I'm good, but I have a chance to be better because their track record is speaking for themselves.
I think if you're the Brewers, you just take a picture of Quinn Priester and send it out to every pitcher in Major League Baseball and go, example A, because I'm telling you, if I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, long-suffering Pittsburgh Pirates fan that lives in Pittsburgh, and I know this was a first-round pick, and this was going to be our guy, our future, here we go, before Skeens, obviously. But again, if this dude was in that Pirates rotation with all Skeens right now, again, they still have to hit. I understand they haven't had any offense, but if he's in that rotation, that's a much, much better looking rotation, obviously. And to see him go somewhere else and now look like what they thought he could look like there, I mean, I would be so flustered if I was a Pirates fan at this point. And at the same point, like you said, if I'm a pitcher who has all this talent and nobody's been able to figure me out, I'm on the phone with my agent like, get me to Milwaukee, please.
Yeah, sometimes it's fresh eyes. It's fresh eyes, and they look for something. And I'll say this about Priester in particular. This guy gets it done, goes deep into ball games. He's not afraid of contact, even though he's a young player, which a lot of times guys are afraid of contact. Even veteran players sometimes are afraid to throw the ball where it can be hit. But he knows what kind of pitcher he is. We interviewed him when we were in Pittsburgh after his great start. So it was, a couple Saturdays ago. And he had a great line. He's like, you know what, I pitched to contact, I'm going to give up hits. But the challenge is to not shy away from that, but to continue pitching to contact. And I know exactly what he's talking about. When you're on the mound and you're pitching your craft and it's not going well behind you, suddenly you go, okay, well, I got to do something else. And you have these irrational thoughts that come and you're like, all right, I need to do this or I need to do that. To hear a young player know what kind of pitcher he is and know what he's trying to do on the mound is exceptional. And that only comes from a player being told, hey, you can do this really well. Other things maybe you don't, but this you do really well. You should lean into that. And then once that pitcher buys into it, suddenly you're finding a guy that is, one of the better pitchers in baseball, honestly, especially over the last 4 months. And a guy that's not very, his delivery and everything is not very strenuous. It doesn't. There's guys that are max effort pitchers and you see it and everything they do is max effort. He looks like he's just kind of nice and easy, flipping it up there, and it's awesome. So that's when you're talking about longevity in baseball, he's a guy that has a chance to play for a really long time.
There's another aspect of this, and I can't tell as a fan, no idea. You're a vet, you've been out there, you've done it. Can you tell who's feels more comfortable in certain situations with runners on base based on mannerisms, based on watching them versus others that may get a little bit more flustered? And you can tell from just you watching, that dude's right now. I can see it. This is not going to go well. Because I feel like when guys get on base for Priester, it's like, I'll get a double play. I'll get a ground ball. We'll get out of this. And seemingly he gets that ground ball more times than not and can get out of any type of mess that may have gotten into previous to that. And I don't know if you could tell that as a former pitcher or not.
Yeah, well, a lot of times you can tell just by a demeanor and what a guy's trying to do. If he goes out there and he walks a couple guys, he definitely doesn't want to start pitching to contact suddenly. But I brought this up the other day. Stephen Watson and I were talking, and there was a situation in a game when they were playing, I don't know, they were playing somebody. And it's all about this. Let's say you're a pitcher and you give up a leadoff double. Whoa, okay, there's nobody out and you got a man on second, oh no. Or maybe there's one out and you give up a double and you're like, oof, maybe I'm losing it. Or you have a guy on first and you give up a weak ground ball and there's no play at second and you got to go to first. So there's the same situation, man on second, one out. But it got there two different ways. And you can tell a pitcher on which two ways. Oh, he gave up a leadoff double, then got an out. Or you can tell a pitcher that, you know what, he gave up a single and then got a ground ball. And now there's a guy on second with one out. You can tell their mannerisms. You can tell what they're trying to do. You can tell by the way they pitch. Look at ball four a lot of times when they walk people. Pitchers will tell you everything, because if they go 0-2 and then end up walking a guy, usually they walk them on some good, really good off-speed pitch, usually a breaking ball, slider, curveball. If they're behind early in the count, if they walk them, it's going to be on a fastball. You can just tell the way that it starts and the way it ends on how guys are reacting to the situation. But yeah, there's some pitchers that do not feel comfortable with runners on base. And then there's other pitchers that get better. It seems like Chad Patrick is the guy that gets better, I feel like, with runners on base. No wonder they put him in the bullpen for a couple of starts, even though I know he's going back in the rotation now that Quintana's going down. But some guys have certain gifts, and you don't know what they are until you see them under that kind of pressure.
Are there managers that you feel like that maybe have managed you over the course of time, or that you've seen along your way in the pros, that are better at knowing their pitchers in those situations and maybe not panicking with a certain guy, but knowing with a different guy, okay, I better go get him because this is about to go sideways? And if it's a different pitcher in the same situation, they're willing to let him work through it.
Yeah, there's different situations for all of it. And one thing the Brewers do really well, and I mean top to bottom, and I went through every level a lot, so is their coaches pay attention. Not to say that other organizations don't have that guy, have that top to bottom, but one thing that they do is they just pay attention. And they also know a backstory. If I'm the 35-year-old reliever, they're going to treat me a little bit different when, the dictates by the game than a 22-year-old guy that's his first year in AAA. Stuff like that. They're going to sit there and look and see and evaluate. Okay, let's check out the mannerisms. And it's because they've seen a lot. They've seen so much experience. They're telling them this guy's not ready for the situation. We got a guy out in the bullpen who's loose and ready. Let's go to this guy. And I mean, you can see it play out in different ways. You saw the Angels, was it last night? Urania, they left him out there. Ray Montgomery comes out, who I know. Yep. He left. Urania's like, I'm not coming on this game. Leave me in.
He used to be in the Brewers front office. He did a draft for the Brewers in the amateur draft. Yeah, great guy.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. He's taken over, and he decides, okay, I'm going to leave him out there. It ended up not going well for him. That's just kind of learning who your guys are that you can trust. Hey, we're going to leave you in there. I mean, even Pat Murphy. Remember when he went out to go take Woodruff out of the ball game, and they'd already visited. But that's how good pitchers are. He was convinced. You know what? Woodruff's got this. Now legally, he had to change pitchers, but he listened to his starter, and if there was somebody else on the mound, he may not listen at all. He may be like, hey, you're done. But somebody like Woodruff, he knows, respects, and have seen him in that situation. So good coaches take, not like they're giving more whatever towards a starter or a guy that's been around a long time than a new reliever. But what they do know is experience, and they count experience as good experience, good and bad.
Well, that was going to be my last question, but then you brought up Uranus. Now I got one more now after you brought him up. People don't realize how tough it is for y'all that have to move teams, get traded, all of that, for your family, your kids, all of that. This dude has been on 5 different MLB teams this year. 5. Like, I can't even fathom what that would be like, moving all over the country, chasing. Again, you're chasing your dream. This is what you want to do. This is what you sign up for. I get it, but that's still got to be really tough.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but the whole baseball thing is tough. I mean, any guy could walk into a clubhouse tomorrow and they'd be like, hey, we're done with you. You've been released, or we're sending you down, and you may not deserve it. And you may look at the numbers and like, out of, these 5 guys, I should not be released, or I should not be sent down. But then sometimes there's other rules that are in place. Well, you got options, or well, you got this, or we're not allowed to send him down because of his contract, or whatever it is. It just seems unfair. And the problem is, there's players that have a hard time realizing how little control they have. You hear about these guys with the big contracts, but that's like a very small percentage, that guys that have really good contracts that are like guaranteed. Everyone else, the huge majority, could walk in tomorrow and not have a job. And that's why it's tough. It's tough on families. It's tough on spouses, kids. Like, everybody is going like, maybe you don't deserve this, or you get traded. It's like, well, we just rented an apartment. That happened to us several times. You rent an apartment, and then suddenly, hey, we're calling you up, or hey, we're sending you down, and you're like, what do I do with my furniture and my kid's stroller? How do I it's logistical stuff that you don't really think about when you're just watching a game, like, hey, this guy skipped around from team to team. But most players, it doesn't matter. They walk into a new clubhouse, usually a pitcher. The hardest thing to do is, all right, I got to get on the same page with my catcher. Outside of that, most baseball players know how to navigate a clubhouse.
He is Tim Dillard, again, of FanDuel Sports Wisconsin, joining us here. Follow him on Twitter at Dim Dillard. Tell everybody about your podcast as well.
Oh, yeah. It's been pretty much on hiatus, but I appreciate you brought it up. I interview a bunch of guys that usually my teammates. It's called Buses, Benches, and Baseball. And basically we talk about the minor leagues and here's some of the stories, because there's so many, podcasts and shows dedicated to the big leagues. And I thought, well, let's just try one about the minor leagues. And it's very simple. It's very easy. I'm going to kick it back up this offseason because most of my former teammates are all coaches now or still playing. So I got to wait for the season to be over so I can bother them again.
That's a great podcast. Absolutely check it out. There he is, Tim Dillard. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Sparky.